let's get into that 5-step process there, and exactly what is PBP, and not PC, but PBP.
The profit building process. So you are correct,
yeah.
PBP. Basically what it starts with is, the first thing it starts with is putting in place a profit building team.
Okay.
So in the book gives very specific directions on how to put a team together like that, the type of people that might be very good on a team like that.
Right.
It goes down and based on trial and error, that says no less than 5 people, no more than 8. You know, so that, you know, so that you can, if you go less than 5, you're not going to get a good cross section of the organization. If you go more than 8, it gets become an unyielding group to kind of go through this kind of a process. So once you get that team in place, the second step is to prepare the team. And why that's an important step, and it's one that's usually left off, is that if you don't prepare the team for what they're going to be up against, and some of the things you're going to be up against is, as they go through the organization, looking for places to save dollars, including their area, the very first thing they're going to run into is resistance.
Oh yeah.
You know, so if they want to save 10% and marketing's an area, if you walk into your marketing manager and say you need to save 10% of your cost, you can for sure know that there's going to be some resistance there. And in fact, most times they're going to want to talk to you about how they need more money, you know, versus the 10%. But if you train them on how to, if there's going to be resistance, you know, more like any kind of an innovative change or innovative management idea, the idea is created, and then when you try to go diffuse that through the organization, there's going to be levels of resistance to that. So we actually go through training of that before we even start talking about you know, profit improvement and that kind of stuff.
Because basic steps to make sure that they're calmed down a little bit. I mean, what are some of the ways to diffuse the resistance prior to actually beginning the questioning?
Well, basically, what will normally happen is that what people normally say is the first thing that they'll say is that we've done that before. That didn't work here. That idea came up.
We love you, Perry. Get going.
Exactly.
Get out of here.
So one of the first things is when you approach the person, you basically say, hey, we're trying some things new. We're going to try to uncover things that were tried before, but we're going to try to take a different spin on those.
Good.
And what we want to do is to have you, as the expert in your area, give us some ideas of where there might be some softness, some savings in your organization. Because if we're able to pull that all together, that would be able to preclude us from having the organization to come through and maybe make some inappropriate cuts. So if you could be so good as to help us, you know, that kind
That's
of
a way to
you know,
reduce
and so
the resistance.
We role play that, you know, that kind of a thing, and then if you go through that particular step, and then the person's going to be a little bit, you know, more conducive in working with and wanting to share ideas.
Well, probably another way would be just to get everyone a copy of Profit Building. Make sure they read it ahead of time, or at least some of the bullet points, because I think if you were able to get to them that 70% idea, that there's a lot of areas before we even start talking about people that we could cut in little places before we even think about it. As you said, I know marketing surely wants more money, but oftentimes in the other groups within the company, if they're able to think, you know, before we even start talking about people, we're going to think about other places we can cut a little bit.
That's exactly
and I'm sure
right.
if you get them thinking that way, that's a way to reduce. But ultimately, some of them may know we are lean as can be already, and somebody's going to be impacted. And that's probably tough.
And in fact, your idea about the copy of the book is that's really what I do when I'm doing my consulting, is to send out a copy of the book, and I usually have a list of exercises I have them go through before, which is really geared toward preparing the team, because I really wouldn't have time in the consulting to go through that part of it. So we actually do get some of the preparing step done before we even get together.
I'm fascinated how many languages you've translated the book into, which has probably opened up your consulting to all parts of the world.
Actually, it's worked out that way. And then when how the book was translated, it was actually requests to the publisher. So the idea basically, and our publisher informed us that it probably would be, that it would be an approach that a lot of businesses around the world would be interested in. Because one of the things that happens with American authors, and this is what our publisher taught myself and my wife, Linda, who's actively involved in the consulting business with me, was that typically the management books that come out of from American authors are more teachy books. It's It's you know,
more theory,
the most
less
beneficial
practice.
this, the most effective with this, the 7 steps of accomplishing things. That's making kind of the observation that maybe that way is the only way that works.
Right.
What this doesn't go that right. It just says your ideas, your questions. It's a change in a process, not a change in directing. And it's true. A lot of businesses around the world has enjoyed it, and it's been translated in 5 different languages.
Is that right?
Recently, Chinese, German, and Indonesian.
Wow.
So it's one that's really starting to catch on even more.
Our director just gave me the 5-minute time cue, and I know that reminded me we still have a couple more steps in the. Of course, the questioning was a big number 3.
The questioning would be the third one. We talked a little bit about that.
Right.
And it's from those questions that you then do your action planning, which is the planning process, which is step number 4. And then 5 is just a continual follow-up. And how the process is based is that it's a cyclical process that is non-ending. Meaning by that is, with the questions that you can generate from your team, you could have an endless number of questions that really come up. So what happens is you take 5 or 10 of those each cycle and work those through. So you take the example of the marketing. You take the questions back to the marketing. Can we find some savings there?
Right.
You don't try to solve that in the meeting because marketing might not even be represented at that brainstorming session.
Great point. Yeah.
So you go to the expert, the consultant, and they might put something on the table that you bring back, and then that becomes your action step going forward. And then what happens is, after those 5 questions are done, the profit building team then looks at the next 5, and then maybe that'll take them into HR, to the research and development area, to the sales team. It'll take them other areas, and so it's just an ongoing process underneath all the other business activities that's going on, to kind of keep your organization at a point where maybe we can weather through, those periods of downturn.
It's clear in the book a lot of this is experiential for you. I mean, a lot of how you came up with the process. It's clear that over time, either you and Linda feeding off of each other, other folks around you, some of your mentors really helped to guide that. Is that how the process came up?
How it came up was through trial and error. I have always been responsible for, say, teams or large groups in organization where I had to come up with a better way to increase revenue, a better way to reduce costs, to build more profits, to build more cash flow. And it were the type of businesses, companies like Procter & Gamble and PepsiCo, who kind of like I failed was not not
the right answer. Yeah.
So you had to come up with it. So it's through we've really got to the point of through people who are closest to a problem, and you have open discussion with them, and you give them the right kind of a foundation, they can come up with the ideas much better than, say, a mandate. And then the questions brainstorming gave some creativity to it, where you're looking underneath stones you would never have looked under, and usually there are some some profits to be saved in that standpoint.
You have seen some of your clients, folks have picked up the book since it came out a couple of years ago. You've seen some of the folks take it and run with it. Have you seen it work, the 5-step process or otherwise, in companies other than ones you've run yourself?
That's an excellent question. I've seen, and we get hits on our website. My wife Linda gets emailed literally every day about folks who are using it, because we don't know where the book goes. For the most part, we've been contacted, and we, from our publisher, know what states and what country books are moving in. But we don't know the specifics of the companies who are using it. So we'll get communication back about different aspects of the book, about successes that they've had. There was a major magazine in London, which is an IT magazine, that literally, you mentioned Chapter 6, took the complete Chapter 6 and published it in their...
Oh, come on.
The complete Chapter 6 was published in their magazine.
Wow.
Because of just that new thinking.
Yeah.
And they were using it on an IT basis and implementations and those kind of things, which obviously makes the point of it's just not for, you can use creative ideas for marketing, for science, for profit, for a lot of things, and they were making that point on how it was used.
Obviously, the Herald's our show sponsor. I couldn't say that the Herald would open up to reprint an entire chapter, but there are aspects of it that clearly could be used for everyone, for folks who are missing this interview right now. I mean, there are definitely some aspects of the book that are not only very commonsensical, but very practical ways to. It's focused principally on companies what size?
It could be a small business,
Right.
or a Fortune 10, 15 company.
Right.
It could work for all business in between, because it just gives you the aspect of being able to pull people together. On small businesses, it's more of a consortium kind of an approach, where
Right.
you'd go to businesses in your strip center,
Oh, yeah.
get together with them, or pick strategically companies. If you're a mailbox, etc. kind of company,
Right.
maybe there's a marketing company, an accounting company that you can kind of partner with to get some ideas, to share some ideas, and to reduce costs along those lines.
Do you see Profit Building 2 coming out, or 3 or 4? Or I'd love to have time to talk to you more about Carolina Restaurant Partners, but what's the future of your writing career?
I have a couple books in the work. One is a customer service book. Linda, my wife, wants me to come back with the sequel of Profit Building, so I'll probably have to do that.
The boss is speaking.
She's
I love
speaking
it.
on that. So yeah, there will be other books coming out.
That's great. I'm sorry we're
Thank
running
you.
out of time.
No
Perry,
problem.
thanks
Thank
so
you.
much.
Nice talking
Stay
with you.
tuned to more Carolina People with local author Perry Ludy coming up next. Think about all that fierce competition to win book of the day. Every 30, 40, 50 books coming out in a day. Multiply that times 30, and you get into competition for book of the month. There's a reason the Institute for Management Studies recognized Profit Building, cutting cost without cutting people, as their book of the month. There's a reason. Go online to bn.com or amazon.com, or pop into a local Barnes & Noble to pick up a copy. You'll see a reason why we've been sitting here the last 30 minutes with its author, Perry Ludy.